Think about the last time you felt completely at peace, not relaxed, not distracted, actually at peace, the kind where nothing was missing, nothing needed fixing, and time seemed to pause. Most of us can remember a moment like that. A quiet morning, a walk, a few seconds after something frightening ended, the brief hush after really good news. What happened in that moment? What arrived? Here's the question that changes everything. What if nothing arrived? What if, instead, something simply stopped, and what was left is what you actually are? This is a read-aloud summary of Presence, Volume 1 by Rupert Spira. It is a book about the most ordinary thing in the world, the simple fact that you are aware right now, and why that one fact is the answer to almost everything you have ever wanted. If you want one of these every week, subscribing takes one tap. Here is the problem this book is trying to solve. You have been searching? Maybe for a relationship, or more money, or a career that feels meaningful. Maybe, at some point, you turn that search spiritual. Meditation, retreats, the idea that if you just got quiet enough, something called awakening would arrive and fix the restlessness for good. But neither search has worked. The conventional search produces happiness in bursts that fade. The spiritual search produces glimpses that vanish. And underneath both searches, the same low hum of unease keeps going. Rupert Spira says the reason both searches fail is simple. They are looking in the wrong direction, not the wrong place, the wrong direction entirely. The happiness, peace, and love you are looking for are not ahead of you. They are what you are made of, right now, veiled only by the activity of looking. This book moves through 3 phases. First, it asks you to look clearly at what you actually are, not what you have been told you are. Second, it shows how the experience of being a separate, anxious self is created and what keeps it running. Third, it points to what remains when that activity stops. That is the arc. Now let us walk through it. The first thing worth noticing. Rupert starts with a question so simple it sounds like a trick. What do you know about yourself for certain? Not what you believe, not what your parents told you. What do you know right now from direct experience? The only honest answer is, I am. Something is aware here, right now, reading or hearing these words. You cannot deny your own awareness, because even the act of denying it requires awareness to be present. Spira calls this aware presence, with a capital P, not a person, not a personality, not the story you carry about yourself, just the plain open fact of being aware. He says, this is what you actually are, before any label is added. Here's where it gets interesting. Try to find where your awareness begins and ends. You can find where your body begins and ends. You can find where your thoughts begin and end. But the awareness that knows your body and your thoughts, where does that start? Where does it stop? You cannot locate it, which means it has no location. It is more like the space of a room, present everywhere in the room, not more present in one corner than another, undisturbed by everything that moves through it. And you cannot agitate space. Loud music fills a room. Arguments fill a room. Furniture moves, dust rises, and the space holds all of it without being touched. Spira says your true self is like that. Thoughts storm through you. Feelings surge and drop. But the awareness that knows all of it has never once been disturbed. This is not a metaphor. Has your awareness ever had a bad day? Why we feel so small? So, if aware presence is what we actually are, open, undisturbed, already at peace, Why does almost everyone feel like a limited, slightly anxious person trying to hold things together? Spira's answer is precise. It happens through a single thought, subtle, habitual, almost always below conscious notice, that I am this body, I am this mind, I am this particular, located, separate thing. When that thought arises, and it arises continuously in most people, awareness seems to contract. It stops knowing itself as the open space and starts knowing itself as an object inside the space. The moment you become an object, you are automatically fragile. Objects break. Objects are threatened by other objects. Objects need protecting, improving, defending, and eventually, they die. From that contraction, everything follows. The separate self is born. The inside self that scans the outside world for what will make it feel whole again. It looks for love in relationships, peace in circumstances, happiness in achievements. And sometimes, those things deliver a brief taste of what it is looking for. When you get what you wanted, there is a moment of relief. The seeking stops. And in that stillness, the happiness that was always there becomes visible for a second. But here is what Spira points out so clearly it almost hurts to hear. The object did not produce the happiness. The end of seeking did. The happiness was yours the entire time. So we spend our lives chasing objects as a roundabout way of temporarily returning to what we never actually left. Henry David Thoreau said most people lead lives of quiet desperation. Spira would say that desperation is not a character flaw. It is the logical result of believing yourself to be a separate self in a world that can either give you or take away what you need. Now is not a moment in time. Here is the most disorienting idea in the book, and one of the most important. We think of now as a thin slice of time between the past and the future. A passing moment. Something brief that keeps being replaced by the next one. But Spira asks, when does experience actually happen? The memory of breakfast this morning. When are you experiencing that memory? Now. The plan for tomorrow. When does that thought appear? Now. Even the thought that was 5 years ago appears now. You have never experienced anything outside of now. Every moment you have ever lived, you lived now. The now does not move. What moves is thought. Thought that labels certain experiences past and certain ones future. But thought itself is always happening now. This matters because the separate self lives almost entirely in time. It rehearses the past. It plans and fears the future. It almost never inhabits the present, because in the present, the searching has to stop. A self built from searching cannot survive the present moment. Try it, not as a meditation exercise, just as an honest check. Can you actually step out of now? Can you go to yesterday? Not remember it. Actually go there. You cannot. There is only ever this. The now is not a moment in time. It is what you are. What peace actually is. People want peace. They want it badly enough to book retreats, spend money on apps, sit in uncomfortable silence for weeks. But what are they actually wanting? Spira says peace is not a state that arrives when circumstances improve. It is the natural condition of aware presence itself, what is already here when the seeking and resisting activity of the separate self quiets down. Think of it this way. The space of a room is inherently quiet. Music can fill the room, arguments can fill the room. But the space itself never becomes loud. When the music stops, the room does not become quiet. It was always quiet. The noise simply ends, and the quiet that was always there becomes audible again. That is exactly the structure of peace in your experience. When the mind goes still, even for a moment, there is peace. Not peace that arrived, peace that was there the whole time, underneath the noise. This is why people feel peace after getting something they wanted. Not because the object produced peace, but because the striving stopped. The seeker dissolved for a second, and in that gap, the peace of aware presence became briefly known. You do not have to manufacture peace. You have to stop doing the thing that hides it. Love is not what we think it is. The book's treatment of love is one of its most unusual contributions, and it is worth staying with. We normally think of love as a feeling directed toward particular people. We love this person, not that one. Love seems selective, needs an object, comes and goes. Spira says that is not love at its root. That is preference, affection, attachment, all real, but not the deepest thing. Real love is what happens when the imaginary wall between you and whatever you are experiencing dissolves. It is the intimacy of pure experiencing, the felt understanding that there is not a separate you on one side and a separate world on the other. There is just experience, knowing itself. He uses the image of a screen and the images on it. A film appears to show trees, people, buildings, all separate from each other. But reach out and touch any of it, and there is only screen. The apparent separation was never real. The screen was never separate from any image that appeared on it. Your aware presence is like that. Everything that appears, thoughts, feelings, the sound of traffic, the weight of this moment, appears in you, not to you. There is no gap between your awareness and what it knows. That gapless intimacy is what love is, at its most basic. This is why a beautiful piece of music, or a clear sky, or the face of someone you care for, can produce something that feels less like emotion and more like recognition. As if the boundary between you and the world went transparent for a second. That transparency is your natural state. The separation is the overlay, the search that dissolves itself. There is a moment in many people's lives, Spira describes it almost tenderly, when the search runs out of road. You have tried the conventional things. You have tried the spiritual things. You have had glimpses that faded. You have read the books, and still the restlessness returns. There is nowhere left to look, and yet something in you cannot stop looking. Spira says this is actually the closest you have come to the truth. Not because crisis is good, but because the mind has genuinely exhausted its strategies. And in that exhaustion, a different question becomes possible. Not, where do I find it? But, who is it that is looking? The answer, when it is genuinely investigated rather than thought about, is surprising. The looker cannot be found as a thing. You can find thoughts. You can find feelings. You can find sensations in the body. But the awareness that is searching for itself, that does not appear as an object. It is the space in which objects appear. When that is seen, not understood intellectually, but actually seen in direct experience, the search does not just pause. It dissolves. There is no one left to continue it. The prodigal son, as Spira borrows from the parable, finally turns around. The body may carry old tensions for a while afterward. Old patterns of thought come back. This is normal, like waves gradually washing away marks drawn in sand. The marks do not disappear all at once, but they are no longer being redrawn by someone who believes they are real. Everything becomes an open door. Bubby Yeats wrote about sitting alone in a crowded London coffee shop, open book, empty cup on the marble table, and then, for no reason, his body blazed with happiness. 20 minutes of feeling blessed and able to bless. Spira would say something simple about that. Yeats stopped, even briefly, performing the activity of being a separate self. And in that stopping, the happiness that had always been there became visible. This is what the book points toward throughout. Not a permanent, altered state, not the achievement of some extraordinary condition, just the recognition, and then the lived reality, that every ordinary moment is already complete, not in a sentimental way. Complete in the sense that aware presence is entirely present in the sound of rain, in answering a phone, in a child asking for a snack, in washing your face in warm water in the morning. When you are no longer trying to get somewhere else, wherever you are becomes whole. At the heart of all experience, Spira says, there is a fire that burns away the labels, the distances, the imaginary separations, until only experience remains, knowing itself, luminous and close. Offer everything to that fire, every resistance, every strategy for becoming something other than what you are. What is left when you do is what you were looking for. It was never anywhere else. If something in this one stayed with you, drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And a like helps more than you know.